hate your guts. I hate how much you're laughing right now, too. I hate your guts. All right, welcome. God. Shut up, cat. I know he does. Welcome to the. I got the wrong sheet. The 22nd Sacrament podcast. Yeah, so. Nope, that's the wrong video. God, I spent so much time working on other stuff. Where's all my audio? And my audio's all gone. This is awesome. This is incredible. Sorry, guys. I don't know where the audio went. All right, so I don't know where the hell the audio went for that damn file. I really don't.
Am I allowed to talk again?
Yeah, you're allowed to talk again.
Okay. We're good at this, guys.
Yeah, but you've got a different name on your Twitch channel than you do anything else. So,
Oh, she's saying that about the audio and stuff. She doesn't even know what I was laughing about.
Oh, okay. Never mind. Well, I guess I kind of gave it away, didn't I? All right, so after giving away everything, so I got all this stuff in the way. You see, we was doing all kinds of stuff today.
Yeah, it's not been a good day.
So
I'm loud again.
last week, how are you loud again?
Just keep going. Just keep going.
Shut up, Knight. He said a little loud. Turn yourself down just a little bit. Last week, where do we go? Oh, the idea of bottlenecking players, which I think is fucking bullshit. I think if you consider challenging game the entire way through a bottleneck, then don't ever play, well, pretty much any successful game. You probably wind up playing Skyrim on ultra easy with the mod that makes it even easier. You fucking pussies. Anyway, sorry. That kind of annoys me. I guess you could.
That's what you really feel. Damn.
Oh. Oh, okay. I was about to say. Twitch screwed your old account, huh? Well. All right. So this week, we're gonna go over the IR20 information. So if you've got any questions, go ahead and post them. Easy lay. No, I'm not going to. If you got any questions, post them. By all means, hit them up. To get some questions out there, we're actually going to cover a big question that I've got, and this is something that I'm seeing not just on our game, on a lot of games for the last, I don't know, 5 years or so, and it always comes out, and it's who's on the teams for games that are being developed. It's well, what's their experience? Have they ever released an MMO at all before? Do they know what they're doing?
Yeah.
So the question was, is there any value in that? Is there really any value in that? Because as we talk about that over the last 10 years, we've seen games who have teams with no experience and games with teams that have a lot of experience. But there hasn't been any quality games out there. So does it really matter? So we decided to pull some data ourselves and do a little bit of science on this matter. Keep in mind, our data, because we collect it the old-fashioned way, is really inconclusive, but I think it very closely represents.
It doesn't have hard numbers or anything, but it shows the purpose we're trying to get across. So,
Velociraptor blood. Amen to that. All right, so this is what you're seeing now is the list that we started to put up. This list, actually, we spent maybe a day or two going through and wound up Some of these things were really hard to find the information, who
Yes,
developed
they
it,
are.
what else they developed. So that's why I say it was about 2 days. The initial list took a day, and then it was really about fact checking and making sure that we had all the information correctly. So first we're going to go through first launch MMOs, and we're going to look at how many were successful, how many were failures, all of that stuff. So, and the reason for failure is very important as well. Very important as well. So I feel that that's huge to note. So the first one, and it's probably first on the list because it's the game that's always on the forefront of my mind when I talk about MMOs, is EverQuest. Absolutely. I'm an EverQuest baby. If I could have been born from an MMO, it would have been EverQuest. So, EverQuest was the first release of any MMO, so it's impossible to say that any of them had any experience releasing an MMO. And arguably, very soundly, I could argue this, it is very much a huge reason why there is an MMO market, period. When EverQuest first came out, there were about 100,000 players that were even remotely interested or even knew about online gaming.
Even knew how to do it, had the money to do it, because it was still expensive back then too.
It was expensive, and if you look at the numbers, it used to cost before MMOs came out to play peer-to-peer type stuff. It used to cost $12 an hour, and then it was typically done with students, college students, but they had to do it after their work courses were done, but before, I think it was like 11 o'clock at night, because the colleges would shut down all power to those parts. So the servers would come offline. So you had to play maybe 2-3 hours, and then you were just spending the rest of the night doing homework and daydreaming about playing the next day with people at a different college than you. So it was all peer-to-peer based at that point in time, and the price model really didn't change much. MMOs actually did a lot in the way of helping to get rid of that per hour price model and move to a monthly sub with unlimited access because of what the internet had jumped into. So it was probably both good timing and great resource planning probably far more good timing on the MMO front.
Yeah, good timing. Yeah. It also could have failed horribly if anything went wrong too. Like there was a lot of pressure on you.
Yep, the entire industry could have been an absolute collapse. So internet cafe in Asia, that's a whole nother story. It's a whole nother market. It's not an American market. People don't understand that market at all. We'll give a class on that someday. I don't really care. But so EverQuest, first release, highly successful. Okay. So no experience. Another first launch, Asheron's Call. Asheron's Call. Czech and I have never played this. We talked about this beforehand. We've never touched it. I know people who have played it. They talk about it.
That's about as far as I know too.
Yep.
I know people.
Never had a complaint about it. During my research, I found that it was considered successful, that it received excellent reviews. I think it was like a 8.5 out of 10.
Yeah, it's really high, especially for games around that time period.
Yep. So I think one of their biggest attributes was apparently there were story arcs that went through and around each other, and it was really complex and really pulled players that did enjoy it into the game. So Ultima Online. So the argument for some people here is Ultima Online is not an MMO. Incorrect. Ultima Online is not a 3D MMO, but it is an MMO. There are thousands of people that play this at the same exact time in the same exact space.
World.
Yep.
Like it has everything that makes an MMO. So.
Yep. So the only thing it didn't have was you couldn't jump into your character's eyeballs, right? So it was. I'm pretty sure it was a top-down MMO.
It was not an immersion MMO, but it did its job.
Right, and it was wildly successful. People still play Ultima Online to this day.
Still makes buku bucks.
Yep. As a matter of fact, for those of you that were here for the interview we had with Sid Kane, who won our raid creation contest, he talked about Ultima Online and some of the things that he loved that he wanted to kind of bring back in hopes that are in Sacrament. So huge success for Ultima Online. No experience for any of the developers on it. Obviously, that was actually one of the arguments is whether or not EverQuest or Ultima Online is the father of MMOs. So
Every place you go says one or the other. I don't know which is first, but like everyone argues over it. So
at this point in time, I don't even think it matters. That's why usually you hear me refer to
yeah,
EverQuest as the father of MMOs. I usually stick in 3D MMOs just so the argument doesn't come up because it's really a pointless argument. They could be
yeah.
gay dads. I don't really give a shit. Doesn't bother me none. Go for it. Final Fantasy 11. So there's a lot of people that actually didn't know Final Fantasy 11 even existed. You'd be surprised. But Final Fantasy 11 itself was a highly successful game. It did have a part of the name to play into it. A lot of people love Final Fantasy. When I was growing up, Final Fantasy was the RPG game out there, and you couldn't wait for the next Final Fantasy game to come out. I mean, we were so excited over Final Fantasy VIII and the real-ish looking cutscene graphics.
Oh
It
yeah,
was unbelievable.
it was a massive step up from looking like a cartoon.
Oh yeah, hugely successful was Final Fantasy XI. More so, and this I always throw this game and DCUO out there when people say MMOs aren't built for consoles. Okay,
I
enjoy.
say Final Fantasy 11 was originally made on a console.
Final Fantasy XI, playing it on PC, you can feel that it's built for the console. So it's a little tricky to get used to just interacting with a UI, let alone anything else. Chicken and an egg sort of thing. I like that. We can use that argument. Next is EVE Online. If you don't know what EVE Online is, you don't
You've
call
never turned
yourself.
on the internet.
Yeah, really, seriously, don't call yourself an MMO gamer, and don't call yourself. Well, you can call yourself a gamer, but you can't say you're a gamer and say that you've ever been on the internet before at the same time. Um,
Yeah, like
EVE
if you
Online,
look,
success is not even the term that defines what EVE Online is. EVE Online is a beast in and of itself. There is nothing else in that field with EVE. Period. No matter how good EverQuest is, no matter how many subs WoW had, EVE Online is absolutely untouchable. There's a game out there trying to touch it. I believe that's Crowfall, right?
yeah, Crowfall is trying to be the fantasy version of Eve.
So there's a game out there trying to touch it because EVE Online is utterly brilliant, and its
It is
masterpiece.
the verbatim sandbox world, and no one has even come close.
Yep,
So
sandbox world is hard to do. It really is hard to do. As simple as it sounds, a sandbox MMO is far more difficult than the MMO we're building, and we've got
yeah.
28 classes and 20 some races. So
Wait, a lot of kiss up on what games? The only game we didn't kiss up is Asheron's because neither of us have fucking ever touched it or even looked at it. So it's hard to talk about it. Honestly, like
I've never
I'm
played.
not gonna pretend to talk about something I don't know. Whereas every other game we've talked about so far, I've played. So I don't know. I don't see where the kissing up is or
Yeah,
kiss ass is.
no, I'm not kissing ass. You'll find out in a minute. Hold on. Terra, first release. Uh, Terra got away with stealing some business model aspects from other games, and there were lawsuits that go along with that, which actually is what led to Terra's failure. Terra, for me, was the best combat in a game. Didn't have the greatest story, way too many tits everywhere. Um,
There was way too many boobs and too many lollies everywhere.
oh my goodness, especially now the way they're doing the class stuff. Terra is now sliding down a hole that doesn't look good for it, but it was a successful launch, and it was the first creation for everybody that worked on the game.
I say it was a really solid first. It wasn't the first, but it was the first successful action combat MMO. There's that too.
There you
I
go.
think, yeah. So
Yeah,
yeah, it is actually the first successful because there was a few that came out for and they weren't very good.
action combat I think was really hard to do at the time because we didn't have the
Internet speed alone.
yeah, latency was a huge issue. Graphics and computer capability was also. Dark Age of Camelot. So, never played this game. I've never
I
touched
have.
Dark Age because, and I'll tell you why I didn't touch it, because I knew it was PvP focused. I know there's PvE in Dark Age of Camelot, but I also know that the developers made it very clear that they were heavily focused on the PvP aspect. And I'm not a PvPer. I don't hate PvP. I don't dislike anybody who plays PvP. What I do know is that anybody, essentially 25 and older, that is PvP'd
I've
has
played Dark Age.
right has played Dark Age. ESO, people were really excited for ESO because the Dark Age team had come over to ensure that the PvP was good, and then the ESO wound up with its own issues. That's another story.
Yeah.
We'll get to that. Star Wars Galaxies. Personally, never played this. I knew a ton of people that did. A ton of people. And it almost had the sandbox vibe that Eve did, but it cut it about
They
in
had
half.
too many rules. They
Right.
put in too many rules.
Right. They removed so much of the sandbox element that it wasn't really it, but it was still successful for its market.
Yeah. And see, he put mildly successful. We talked about this too. It was extremely successful for its niche.
Right.
As a whole,
And for a first launch, that's success enough. SWTOR, first release of BioWare, Damian Schubert. I wrote here initially successful only because for the people that say, well, sales count, sales determine success. Even though gamers don't agree with that on a huge part. That's still an argumentative point. The game itself was not successful. The class system or leveling system, really, the stories there were excellent. But endgame, where you spent most of your time, was broken, ridiculously broken, and PvP was open world PvP was shut down.
All you had was Hutball, and the reason why people played it is the game Hutball is fun. The PvP that happens during Hutball is not.
Yeah. So
like I'll still give them this. Hutball is probably the best arena-based system that they've made for like actually being fun. Like Hutball PvP was great.
Yep. I had Path of Exile on there. That was actually a joke to...
that was a joke, and we forgot to remove it.
Yeah, joke, forgot to remove it. It is later, but it's not an MMO, so I'm not going to keep it on there. And I'm definitely not going to try to cheapen this experiment in adding shit that doesn't count. Guild Wars. First release of some senior developers of the Blizzard Entertainment Group before WoW came out. It's still unclear whether or not they worked on WoW at all, though considering the time that they left, which was about 2000, it's highly doubtful that they really contributed to WoW itself. So
the most would have been like artists would have seen it at that point,
right?
At most,
right. So Guild Wars though was successful. It's the reason Guild Wars 2 existed. I never played I can't say I never played the game. I did actually play the game for a short time, but this was after its after
its heyday.
Yeah, after its heyday, because someone had told me that they had the second best, or on a MMO, I think it was like MMORPG.com, there was a rating for Necromancer classes, and they had the second best rated Necromancer class. And depending on what you consider a Necromancer class,
I'll say
it can be
really
argued
good
as the first best Necromancer class. So it's kind of up in the air, but the game itself was actually really fun for what I did play, really solid, and from what I understood, for all the reviews from players and critics, it was successful. RuneScape, never touched it. I can't. Did you
I played it for 5 years. I'd say we're
that's right.
5 years.
5 years. Successful game. First launch. RuneScape actually, and I've got it here, is noted in the Guinness Book of World Records for two things. One is the largest free MMORPG, and the other is for most updated game, and that's among pay-to-play games. And EverQuest has a yearly update model with expansion content every year. And
I say Guild Wars 2 is also going pretty fast too, but they still just can't keep up.
Yeah, so that's actually pretty impressive. That's not a reason for success or anything, but it's worthy of mention. Marvel Heroes, first release of David Brevik, the creator of Diablo. Successful game. I never played it. Check never played it. People we talked to, all of the...
I say everyone I know that's played it all says it's great.
Right. So, and honestly, when it comes to success, I truly care about what the players are rating. So we did...
I don't care how much money you make.
Stuff.
I say money is what keeps the game going, not that makes the game good. So.
Right. Lord of the Rings Online. Anybody that argues with the success of Lotro doesn't really understand how gamers function. Lord of the Rings Online was a first release of Jeffrey Stiefel and definitely a successful game. As a matter of fact, one of the systems we've got in our games was brought to mind as someone explained to me how the instrumentation system works in Lord of the Rings Online. So our instrumentation system is actually an inspiration from that idea. I actually spent about 4 hours when they told me this looking up music videos as players created replication music or
Mhm.
replica music of like
Yeah,
Michael
really.
Jackson and all these very popular songs. That in and of itself is pretty badass. But Lord of the Rings, very successful. Definitely among role players. Definitely among role players. Final Fantasy ARR. Um, yeah. So
Yeah.
the first Final Fantasy 14 non ARR,
No.
wildly
Fuck
horrible.
no.
Horrible game. ARR after they removed um, Tanaka and put Yoshida on, that game actually became something completely different.
Phenomenal.
And a lot of people didn't think it could happen. A lot of people thought they were wasting their time. I was one of them. I thought they were wasting their time. I wasn't even going to give it a shot. Second beta weekend rolled around, and somehow I got a beta invite. Never signed up for it. I think one of my friends signed me up for it. And I just went in to try it out and fell in love with the game. Honestly, fell in love with the damn game. Um, Final Fantasy ARR. The only reason I don't play it right now is because I do not like some of the things they did with the
It's
raid
raid
content.
content too.
And rating is very important for me, which is something that's hard for me to get into a game because a lot of games don't really have rating anymore. So, City of Heroes and Villains, another first. Jack Emmert, co-founder of Cryptic Studios. I put it on note on here. Then did Champions that failed. Champions actually shows up. Crave just forgot to erase that part. Shadowbane, never heard of this. This is something.
This is something I put on.
Okay, so you put this on there. I don't know anything about
Yeah.
Shadowbane. So,
So Shadowbane, I say for is made by J. It wasn't made, but J. Ty Coleman was one of the lead developers on it. He was from Muds. He actually created and ran a mud called Chaos Mud. I it was a success. It died just as fast as it succeeded. Sadly, it was even vote. It was at top best 10 selling games. That even says there, and it was due to open world PvP. But its open world PvP was extremes. It was permadeath, extreme death. There was varying rules. You died, you lost. You actually lost things when you died, and it's also a big thing. And it was even games on it now had the most dynamic world content. You could hire guards, AI to guard castles, to guard roads in the world, because everywhere was PvP. You could destroy buildings, you could remake roads in different directions, you could destroy forts to break into them and then rebuild them after you took it over, so on and so forth. But it sadly died because the game launched with bugs, and it always had bugs till the day it died. So it shunned away even the fanatics over it, sadly.
So, I want you to understand a few things as we go over this list. What we did here, we did not look up games that we thought were successes or failures. We simply looked up games that we knew, and then we went and looked for MMOs that have been in the market from '99 all the way up to now, which is actually a lot of search because it's not a comprehensive list. You have to look by year, which is a pain in the ass. And we just went ahead and ignored any game that was an absolute flop because
Yeah. I say, and we also can't talk about games again that we don't know. So this obviously isn't the list of. This is not
if
the
it
list
didn't
of
have
games
ratings,
that have actually succeeded.
if it didn't have ratings, didn't have people we could talk to about it, didn't have enough information on it to find out if it
Yeah,
was a
there's
second
a lot of
launch or a
stuff
first
that's
launch.
really like a lot of stuff that's hidden actually.
A lot. I actually had to dig really hard to find out who the lead producer was for Lord of the Rings Online. Actually, I it took me about half an hour to figure that out. All right, so second launches. So here we go. This one gets a little rough, and these are legitimately we just plugged in names for second launches. I moved Final
Mhm.
Fantasy 14 up to the top because we talked about ARR. We already talked about Final Fantasy 14. Tanaka had a great Final Fantasy 11. Then 14 came along, absolute shit. Star Wars Galaxy, second release of Raph Koster, mildly successful, and the failure was really more internal business based than it was the game development based itself.
Mhm.
It seemed the publisher was the evil hand there. Of course, there's two sides to every story. Publishers don't talk no matter what. So, EverQuest 2, second release of Raph Koster after he did SWG. And Brad McQuaid, who was part of the EverQuest team, uh, it started out decent. It wasn't exactly successful. Players didn't thrive or didn't rush to it the way that they were hoping. They were really hoping that they were going to shut down EQ1 and launch EQ2, but
Yeah,
a lot of us
that
tried
was not taken
EQ2.
nicely.
We're not happy with the change. outside market wasn't exactly pushing into it. That game, I'm not going to write that game off as successful. When it's your second game and you're hoping that it's the real successor, it should at least pull the numbers your initial game has or had at some point in its damn career, and this game did not. It gained popularity in about 2007, 2008, when a lot of players finally stopped playing EQ1 and were looking for the next EQ game, and a lot of them, including myself, went over to the rating scene on EverQuest 2, because the rating in EQ1 had really fallen off, and if you were playing EQ1 at that point in time, rating was really something you wanted. So, wow. Nobody needs to question this. It was a successful game. Regardless how you feel about the content was good. It did change a lot of things about MMOs. I'm not going to call this, though, a true second launch. This game really took a lot of ideas from other games and simply just recreated them. Had WoW attempted to launch the same way it launched back in 2004, had it attempted to launch 2 years ago, 3 years ago, it would have been, they would have been sued big time.
Yeah, they would.
They actually were sued a few times, but because certain copyright laws for
no one knew how to do things with intellectual property.
Right.
Even now, it's still a big. What do you do? Like, it's really hard to decide. You know, if you talked about it, does it make it yours?
Right. So, and you can hate me for saying that all you want, but if you go do the research for yourself, you'll find that WoW stole pretty much everything it had from everybody else. So, while the game was wildly successful, I can't really write it as a first or second launch, but I'm going to put it as second launch because I feel second launch deserves a little bit of love. ESO, second release of Matt Fireroar, the same guy that did Camelot. Was it Camelot? What was the actual name of that game?
Dark Age.
Dark Age of Camelot. And this was actually something people were really excited about with ESO. And then ESO came out, and, well, everybody knows how ESO went. The only people still playing ESO are role players who love Elder Scrolls. Honestly, if you...
Well, I say, even the diehard PvPers left like 4 months ago, finally.
If you created a mod for Skyrim where you could play with buddies, ESO would die. They would just go play that. Honestly. I'm dead on.
Yes, they would. They would.
Arcade, second release for Jake's Song. I do consider this successful because it had really great ship-based combat, and that drove the game, and it was enough to push the game. It's still an active game. It's still going. There are a lot of people that left because of some business practices, but business practices don't necessarily dictate the success of the game content itself. Was it a complete game? Not really, but it was complete enough to actually be entertaining for a lot of gamers. So.
I played it myself, and I loved it. Great game, ruined by money. I'll just leave it at that.
Hellgate London. I think this is one neither one of us know anything about.
I didn't even know about it. This is from Crave, so
yep. So this is from Crave, who's actually out seeing Deadpool right now, so I can't even get his input on this. Apparently, and he went into great detail talking to me about this earlier this week, the game itself was simply just an utter failure. He won't tell me the exacts why. I guess it must have pissed him off. I think he was really expecting something from this game. So,
yeah.
I don't know.
Like, yeah, no, I have absolutely no idea what this game even was supposed to be or anything. Like, I'll just shrug my shoulders.
Yep, and you are absolutely right. I absolutely agree with you. Becca's saying they don't care. If they see an idea that'll make them money, they have a big enough name, they don't care if it's stealing. And you're absolutely right. Yeah. Especially when you have as much money as really big corporations do, when you can drown
even if
somebody
you're at the point that even if someone sues them, they can't afford to sue them.
And that's, we're not going to get into that, but that's the reality of the business. Tabula Rasa. You ever seen this?
I've seen the name, never played it.
Again, another one from Crave. Again, guess the entire system really upset them. I don't know anything about it. It's listed as an utter failure, and the reviews are really bad. Vanguard, Sage of Heroes. I do know about this one because I did know this one a little bit up until.
I wanted to love it so much.
I actually stopped. This game actually started out pretty good, Vanguard. It started out really good. The beta tests and alpha tests were really good,
Yeah,
and
I played
then
the beta. But
they went and opened up the forums. And I kid you not, I don't. This is the reason why we're going to treat our forums the way we do. But at the exact same time that they opened up their forums to pretty much everybody, their entire community went to shit. And McQuaid started listening to the people who
you listened to the wrong voices.
Yep, the voices who had just showed up, who probably didn't even give a shit about the game, who had never touched the game, didn't contribute financially to the game at all. The game was using Patreon to help fund the game, or some type of crowdfunding. I don't even know if Patreon existed at that point, but they were using
They used crowdfunding in different
players
ways.
to help fund the game, and a bunch of people that didn't contribute at all came in, said all this dumb shit about what they should be doing. And they did that, and then the game went to complete shit. So if you ask me, Vanguard failed because they listened to the wrong people, not because Brad McQuaid had a bad game design, because his initial game design was really good. So Champions. I've never played Champions.
I tried. Didn't like it, but I didn't play enough to even try to say anything about it. It just...
I don't know why that's... No? Yeah. We'll just go with black.
I don't know.
Mediocre game is... I mean, yeah, it's a second release. Should probably be higher than mediocre, but it's not a failure, so we're going to give that love. Defiance, second release of Bill Trost. I played the shit out of Defiance.
So did I. Oh, God.
And
I wanted to
tell you
so hard.
I played the shit out of Defiance not because of the game. I played the shit out of Defiance because I wanted the whole game movie series concept to really be cool, and I wanted to be a part of that. And then TV series. And then the TV series came out, and it was really lackluster.
Not what we were told.
And and it just wasn't worth it to stick around for the game at that point. I really liked some of the aspects of the game, but you can get those from other games, so it didn't sell the game. It was no different than essentially single player. I mean, every day that I played Defiance, it was all single player except for
I did everything by myself.
Yep.
And then the events were really trolly and boring because there was way too many people doing them. So
yep. And then Wizard 101, Pirate 101, both done by Todd Coleman. They were successful. Second and third releases respectively. As much as I hate saying it, they were successful. I don't like them, but that doesn't make them bad games. So
I don't like them either, but they're good games. That's why I put them there. They're boring to me.
Just like PvP. I don't like PvP, but we're going to have very strong PvP in our game. DCUO, honorable mention. It's not on this list. It's something we actually talked about that we realized we didn't have. DCUO was a second release. It was actually a great game for 6 months. And then the developers kind of failed the game with changes and things that they were doing to the game that kind of set it up for failure. So,
yeah.
So, yeah.
Good idea. Terrible execution.
Honestly, these are the bigger name games that are out there. The ones that would have more notable information on them. Some of these actually weren't. Like Hellgate London, Tabula Rasa.
Tabula Rasa. But you can't find anything on them.
Yeah, we could actually take those off this list just to take 2 negative hits off, and I'd go ahead and do that. But for big name, right, we're not talking about AAA studios. We're talking about popular games. We had a 15 out of 16 success for people that had no experience on games prior, and we'll take those 2 off. We'll count it. We'll count DCUO as success even for those few months.
Do you need to borrow some fingers?
No, a 5 out of 11 success for games that had previous developers on it. So, is there any credence to does a development team need experience creating an MMO before? No, absolutely not. There's absolutely no information out there to support that a team that has previously created an MMO will have any more chance of success than a team that doesn't. Honestly, psychologically, the reason is probably because they've already created success, so they forget how difficult it is, and that no matter what, There is no guarantee. The difference between a AAA studio launching a game and an indie studio launching the game is literally a margin of less than 1%. People don't realize that though. So, do your homework, get yourself educated. Are we experiencing creating an MMO? No. That doesn't work against us at all. At all. All right, so IR20. Does anybody, we're going to go over this. And that's another part right there. So Becca brings up a huge thing. We're coming up with new content and not recreated version of another game, right? That's huge. Huge. What does it take to be creative enough to do that? Well, let's look at the different mindsets. We're not going to because that would take way too long. But
yeah, that'd be a lot of work.
The type of mind it takes to put together a virtual space is a different type of mind than it takes to design that system that they actually put together. That's two different minds. If you notice, the lead designer and the game developers who sit in the office are never the same people. Never the same people. Ever. Big question. Would the Sacrament development team ever take on someone who has experience in building an MMO? Yes, I would.
I don't see why not.
They're not leading this project. Would I put them in a lead position? No, not likely. What? Okay, so
it depends.
Let me say this.
More people.
Brad McQuaid. Let's say Brad McQuaid decided to come over. He's got a lot of experience in the fantasy world, right? He's got experience we can absolutely use. Would I have Brad McQuaid take over the company from scratch? No, I would not. Would I have Brad McQuaid take the system designs we've already got laid out and lead a development team? Absolutely. Brad McQuaid could do that. There's no question can Brad McQuaid do that. But Brad McQuaid gets nervous, and it's something that's likely going to be something we have to deal with. But Brad McQuaid got nervous because all these people were coming in and filling his head with this stuff. You have to understand the pressure.
Yeah, made him second guess himself.
Right. The pressure of being in that situation. That's huge. That's psychologically, that's a challenge. So I don't fault Brad McQuaid for Vanguard at all. I mean, I don't fault Brad McQuaid as a developer for Vanguard. I fault Brad McQuaid as a business leader for Vanguard, and he's probably learned from that. Honestly, he probably won't make the same mistake with the current game that he's making. And I've said it a few times. I'd love to have somebody like Brad McQuaid come in here and help us create a development team.
Experience is huge, and
right.
We will never say no to that. But
I'm not going to make them the CEO. But I'd let them come into the team. Absolutely. They don't control the entire company or the entire game concept, and we've already got the entire game scope and vast majority of the system design documents already laid out. So bringing somebody with a big name is not really going to hurt us at all because we're not worried about those kind of things. They don't have to be creative at that point. Now somebody like Brad McQuaid can come in here and do something he's absolutely brilliant at, and that's develop the game, create the 3D space, and he'd probably do it a lot faster than any team I could put together.
Yeah.
So, and that's just the straight truth of it. So would I? Yeah, I would. But
he's not going to hand them the keys, but they'll let them in the door.
They'll be in the role that they thrive in, and that's one of the things I excel at as far as leadership, leading a company goes. All right, so that's a good question though. See, Becca knows. Why ain't you leading the damn business, Becca? Shit.
You don't want her in charge. She'll start throwing things and killing people.
Because it's any different here. Steel deal. How do our team speak conversations sometimes? So, IR20, raid systems. I'm going to try to make this go not too long. So our raid system, we've talked about this before, but with the IR20, we've gone a little bit more in depth because there's a lot more to the raid system than just the raids, right? There's a lot more information than a lot of people want to think. And before people freak out, this context right here was the very initial write-up of this raid that was literally put into a Excel spreadsheet cell. We have documents for this stuff now. Stuff on this has changed as far as who the bosses are, the sub-bosses, what they do, stuff like that. All those things have changed. This was the initial write-up that took I'm pretty sure I wrote this, or maybe Crave wrote it. I'm not too sure who wrote it exactly, but it took, it was a moment where you had inspiration. Maybe you were eating dinner, sleeping. You got up, you had to write something down. That's essentially what you're reading right here. So the raid system is heavily multi-mechanic driven, and I think I need to start using the term multi-mechanic because
That's a big word.
a lot of times mechanic driven, people think, okay, sure, but if you only have death penalty system or instant shot, one shot type shit, then what's the rest of the fight look like? And the reality is there are multiple mechanics you're dealing with in these raids, and we understand some of these raids are going to be harder than other raids. And it's not on purpose. It's something that we will be fine tuning. This is the initial outline as we're putting together all of our raid system documents. Or raid fight documents, I should say. The raid system design doc is already done. It's been done for a while. So basically what's going on here is as you play our game, your role is who you are. In the raid, that becomes even more exemplified. I know a lot of people think if I jump into a party with 36 people, I'm just one person out of 36, but you're really not. You manage one of the cogs that need to be in line in order for everybody to be successful. Now, you could fail your job and somebody else can pick up slack and recover for you, and things like that can happen. But at the same time, we want every single person to constantly be doing something during these raids. And that meant that we had to address the roles. So the roles have to be actively doing something in these raids. The question in-house comes to, we create all this stuff for roles. What if a raid rolls with 4 CC and another raid rolls with 10 CC? How are those 10 CC going to be different when these 5 were barely busy? You double it, and now you've got less work for them to do. So there's a design discussion going on right now about creating an algorithm that will read the classes that come into the raid and alter all of the segments slightly. The only problem with that comes in DPS. If they run with no DPS, does that mean the boss doesn't need to be DPS at all? So there's always going to have to be a minimum. At the same time, and I don't think you'll ever have this issue because most people play DPS anyways, regardless how many roles you've got. The majority of the user base is going to play DPS. What if we roll all DPS and ignore all the others? Or what if we roll too much?
We're all healers. What are you going to do?
Right. So those are things that we have to absolutely consider when we start coding that kind of stuff, which is why right now it's still a discussion. Is it worth the headache? We think it's worth the headache. It's something we're going to experiment with, but it's not something that we're promising to anybody. This will be the first and last time you hear about this. So just food for thought type of things that we are working on at Ferocity Unbound. So while we start raids in tier 11 for the 12 player, these raids aren't going to be as challenging as your tier 16 plus raids, only because these raids are designed to give you a feel for how things work. Yes, they're going to be a challenge. Sure, absolutely. But the entire tier is based on group combat. So if we go and we create hyper challenging raids and the loot to match that type of a challenge, then all you need is raid loot. And then the next tier, and now tier 12, where you had 6 people in your party in tier 11, tier 12, you can run around with 2 people in your party because you've got raid gear. It's something that we highly consider. It's something that we have to consider. So it's something that is going to definitely affect the way that the tier 11 through 15 raids work. They are an introduction to raiding. They will be a challenge. Pug raids should absolutely be challenged unless they have... we do have a raid fight where you have to heal the boss to death, so be ready for that.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness. You have no idea. If you can think of the mechanic, we've already got it, okay? Well, maybe. There's probably some out there that we haven't thought of yet, so send all your ideas.
Probably some, yeah.
But we've got some really creative shit that's going to piss a lot of people off, and in that, make them really happy. Anyway, so the raid system When you experience the 11-player raid, if you choose to, understand it's not tied to your progression. You don't need to do it to progress to the next level. There will be certain items that we're calling epic rune slots or socket slots.
We still haven't decided on the name, if that's what
Yeah,
you're talking about.
the
It's
game,
hard to
the
figure
name
out.
itself has not been determined. The socket slots, what goes in those, the names haven't been determined yet. These are all
But
things
what
that
they
could
do is,
happen last minute. But essentially, what these items would do is these are like a really really long quest, and we're talking about a 200-hour quest or so. I'm pretty sure I showed you guys this already. Maybe I didn't. We can go over that. I
I
did.
remember this conversation.
I
I
did
do.
show this. So this is that really long quest that you would do. In the event that you're doing those epic quests, they will eventually take you into the rating for that tier. So understand that if you want those epic items, you will need to go into that raid stuff. Outside of that, you don't have to participate in tier 11 through 15 raids to progress. Tier 16, however, the raids
Yes.
are your progression. If you're not in that, good luck. So yeah, have fun with that. Blended rating. So this is something that was really fun for us to come up with. Something that we had a real spur of the moment kind of thing, right? And the question came up because, well, if PvEers and PvPers get epic items, what about crafters? Do crafters get epic items? But crafters don't PvE or PvP. So how would they go about that? Well, you could still introduce them to the quest line that would do it, and have them perform their own task at the same time. When they come over to the rating aspect, they don't need to PvE, but they can do things that help with the quest. For instance, blended raid. Let's say it's 36 players. You take 6 crafters in. You could have 2 crafters working on repairing a ballista, 2 crafters working on creating the metal spike that goes into the ballista, and then 2 crafters working on the string that you would pull that back with, and that would ultimately launch that metal spike at the boss. And that could be a mechanic that stops a boss from doing. Maybe the boss has a wave AoE attack that does constant damage to the raid, where the healers can almost keep up with it, but so much so that if you don't stop it, your raid's going to die. And now you've got the crafters involved by doing their job without making them pick up a weapon and fight a mob, because crafters don't want to have to do that. You should never force a crafter to do something they really don't want to do. So blended rating, that's essentially what that's going to look like. We're really excited about that. We've got some really solid ideas on that. Dragon Guard. This is
just awesome.
This is the epitome of our open world boss, right? This is the ultimate open world boss, and he wanders around tier 17 through 20 raid zones. And you can walk around these raid zones all you want. You're not restricted. You just can't enter raids unless you're flagged for those raids, or rather attuned to those raids. Or if you're buy to play right now with our current setup that we're going with, you can't enter the raids at that point. But you can still walk the overworld where this boss wanders around. So the Dragon Guard are the keepers of the seat of the Centauran, right? Or supposedly so. And the Dragon Guard are an numerous amount of Dragonkin that essentially are there to ensure that the sentient population is not destroying the planet. And up to this point, you're not. You bastards are not destroying everything, so good on you for not being economically or economically unconscious assholes. However, raiders are going to be hungry to kill the Dragon Guard. That's just how it works. So the Dragon Guard is actually a scaled boss fight event. If you kill the Dragon Guard, awesome. We still haven't decided exactly what you get. Either you
get shiny things.
Right. You're going to get something worth the fight. 72 hours later, that Dragon Guard's bigger brother's coming back, because now he's pissed. His brother's been defeated, and now he's got to come do the watch. And, I mean, there's really been no threat here, so they just keep sending the next weakest guy. So with each additional Dragon Guard, the challenge increases. The mechanics increase, the damage increases, the DPS requirements increase, the types and number of allies they bring with them that they call forth increase. The overall fight increases enough that If you defeat the first Dragon Guard with 12 players, the second one's probably going to take you another 6 players to manage all of that stuff. Then the third one's going to take you another 6 players, and then the fourth one, and the fifth one, and so on and so forth. And so this Dragon Guard is a continuous boss fight, ultimate boss fight event that challenges the players to bring not just their A game, but more buddies, more and more friends into the fight to try to take down this guy. The Dragon Guard himself is not tier-based. It doesn't belong to any specific tier. The Dragon Guard is seen as an ultimate guardian, so tiers and that stuff, unlike other NPC mobs, is irrelevant to the Dragon Guard. So you get what you get with the Dragon Guard. Now, if you fail to kill the Dragon Guard, and he's active for 28 days, then that Dragon Guard event will reset all the way down. They've revived their previous brothers, and the threat has clearly been diminished and foiled, and now they believe that they can retain order over all of whatever they were watching, and so they send the first Dragon Guard back. So it is going to be a challenge. It is going to be fun. Expect GMs to randomly take control of the Dragon Guard and absolutely and utterly fuck with the raid force. I will be one of the GMs that does that.
So many people are going to be salty over that, but it's whatever. Oh, yeah. I love people that go, GMs ruin things. Yeah, that's not exact. That's actually really close to what it is, Bucky. I don't think I ever played Lineage, but
I didn't, but I've seen a lot of it. But I hear a lot of good things. Lineage, that's a game we didn't have on our list.
Yeah. Honestly, that's the issue. Like, a lot of people are going to whine because of the list. There is just too many fucking lists.
There's a lot of games. We couldn't do a complete comprehensive list. We did it in 3 days. We got, and I think it represents with a margin of error the reality that it doesn't matter. Raid timers. All right, so this is something that as gamers, and this is where being gamers really comes into play. As gamers, we fucking hate raid lockouts for a lot of reasons. So, what we've done with raid timers is a little different. My goodness.
I did. We're okay, Knight. We're good.
Raid lockout timers are purely based on loot in Sacrament, not on the boss itself. So, a few issues, right? Previous MMOs, you could beat a boss and get absolutely lucky and still not understand the fight. With Sacrament, we want you to be able to challenge that boss over and over again. If you want to torture yourself, you should be able to torture yourself. But you're only capable of getting that loot once every, I think it's like 72 hours. I've got it listed somewhere.
It's not on this, but it's on the document.
Okay. So it's once every 72 hours. I don't know why it's not on this.
I saw that too. Yeah, no, it is. Unless you change it. Last time I saw the doc, it was 72 hours.
So, sorry, I'm reading it again. I just read this like for the 5th time this week, so I love reading this shit. I really do. So on top of that, let's say your raid beats the boss, right? Let's say it's Tuesday. Your raid has already beat the boss for the 2nd time that week. You've got both your loot, but you've got a friend in another raid, and maybe it's a holiday season, and the raid isn't full, and you want to help your friend out. So what used to happen is you were locked out of that raid. You absolutely could not go into that raid, and sometimes, this shit used to piss raid leaders off. I know. They would make you a raid officer. You would zone into a raid, and you would get your raid's instance that might have had the final boss. And they were going in there in like 2 hours or 3 hours later that evening, or maybe even a couple hours before reset, and taking it on. And that raid now has full access to that instance, even if it's on accident. Oh my goodness, I have absolutely punted people from guild for that shit. Although for the most part, it's done on purpose.
Yeah. But it also happens on accident all the fucking time.
Yep, it does happen on accident quite a bit. So, or the other way around, once your raid zones into, let's say your raid leader was helping his friend, once your raid zones into that, they're kind of tagged to that raid instance for half an hour or an hour. EQ2 was like half an hour. You were tagged to the instance, and even if you put somebody else in charge so that they could jump in first, you were still stuck on that for half an hour. Is a long fucking time in gaming, a long time, especially on a fucking raid night.
On raid night because you can't do anything.
Yep. So to remedy this, we believe we've come up with an ideal solution that focuses more on the loot aspect than anything else. So you can still go help your friends and then raid with your boys later on that evening, and not have to feel guilty. And it was one of the things that was really frustrating about Terra was the dungeons were the same way, and these were player dungeons, and you could only run them like once every 6 hours. So you had to run it with your group. You couldn't run it with anybody else, even if they just needed a little bit of help, a little bit of that push that you knew your DPS could bring or your tanking could bring to help them win. And you wanted to see them successful. You want to see your friends successful. But the way the game's kind of coordinated and created is you're highly restricted to not being able to help them. You become a cheerleader instead of an active friend. So this, we absolutely feel is going to encourage people to help their friends out, even if they're not in the same guilds, and not feel like they have to join the same guild as their buddy, even though there's no raid spots for them or anything like that. So this is the raid timers that we're looking at, and it's really, we feel it's really intuitive. We feel it's one of the things where, as a gamer, it's something that a developer trying to create an MMO would have never really come across, because they don't understand that type of frustration and pain that we deal with going through those kind of things. So if you've got any questions about any of that, send them, and I will. I blocked 100 plus gold spammers. I deserve to be a Dragon Guard and kill everybody. If you played Final Fantasy ARR when it first came out, you sure as hell did block 100 plus gold spammers.
Yeah.
Quiet time while Lay does his rant.
Well, when you do this stuff, I have nothing to say. I'm just like, yep.
Sorry.
Notes.
So Defender, I know a lot of people are thinking, oh, a tank. Wait, where the fuck's his shield? Yeah. Defender's actually a healer, and it is a ward healer. So pretty much prevents all damage. For those of you unfamiliar with the term ward healing, ESO called it damage shield. And ESO, and I've said this many times, you're fucking retarded. That's not what a fucking damage shield is. God damn it. Yeah. A damage shield is something I put on myself, and when an enemy hits me, they get damage taken back to them. That's a fucking damage shield. Okay? So stop trying to rename shit. Go with shit that works. Don't change shit just for the sake of changing it. It's a conversation we're actually having on the forums. Anyway, so the ward healer specializes in casting these protective bubbles around players that really soften some of the blow. So when you know a really big hit's coming, a ward healer will definitely need to be, let's say the paladin takes the best hits, right? But let's say you got a monk tank, and a monk tank, he's a really good tank, and your paladin's not there tonight, or maybe your raid hasn't created the paladin, or maybe you're in a group and your tank just so happens to be a monk, but the group boss you're facing does really big hits. So one of the things you could do is double down your healers, get a ward healer and a heal over time healer. Excellent combo, let me tell you. You could have the ward healer keep wards up on the monk so that if he gets hit, he's not taking a tremendous amount of damage / dying from that hit. And the HP healer will be able to replenish all of that health while the wards are protecting him from hit points. So that's kind of a really solid combo right there, the way that it works. And that's just base off of how the healing aspects work. That doesn't consider any class ability evolutions or any socket slot items that will alter some of the effects of your abilities. So that's essentially how a ward healer works. This ward healer is very melee-ish, so you notice he's in chainmail for roll effective armor. Why does that say OE? That's supposed to be DE. Email coming to Corey. So that's,
we do this stuff every week too.
every week. We're not gonna catch everything, so I'm not too worried about it.
We're human.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a company made by humans for humans. Screw the fucking robots.
Forget the robots. Robots aren't allowed here. Out.
isn't there a forum that's like all robot, and anytime somebody doesn't make a
Mhm.
robot type post, they say fuck the normies or some shit like
Yeah,
that?
weird. There's a Reddit for it.
There you go. So anyway, excellent role playing. I love reading that kind of shit. But so that's defensive, not offensive effective armor. Defensive effective armor is plate to add a little bit more defense, but again, that will lose effectiveness. We don't know the exact percentage yet, how it's going to work, or if we're going to
Yeah,
allow for
you won't
passives
be
that
as
will
good.
enhance it.
You won't be as good at your job if you wear heavy armor.
But you'll survive. So if you suck and the
Yeah,
group
put it
can't survive
on.
without you,
You'll stay alive. Your friends won't, but you will.
right. So some of the abilities. So momentum abilities are abilities you have to build up by using your normal attacks, your primary ability attacks, and then you can use momentum to use these kind of things. None of these provide you with any of the evolutions to these. So remember that class abilities, they start out with the base, and then they've got an evolution where you can add additional effects to them or make them a little bit more powerful in certain
Yeah.
areas that are already on them. So Bastion is the wards each group member for percent of their total health. We're working a lot with percentages because percentage seems to be, as we run the numbers over and over and over again,
Easier to manage.
percentages are vastly easier to manage, and they prevent players from trying to just build massive resource pools to overcome those kind of things. So the percentages are really working for us. Rallying defense, mitigation increase to each existing ward, so that's a bolster on top of, as you can see up here. They are not only HP healing based, but they are also group support, so that's where that comes in from. Guardian, weapon attacks for the next X seconds, ward focused target for damage. See, I always got to stab Crave for wording. Weapon attacks for the next X seconds, ward focus target for damage dealt. So, because he really shouldn't have put that there, but whatever. A focus target is, if you played any of the original MMOs, you used to be able to set a focus target where you would get a little icon that would pop up their bar, and you can move that around independent from anything else. In our game, for healers, focus targeting is a huge targeting aspect. You'd be able to set a tank or maybe even one of the wild DPS as a focus target, and you'd be able to spread certain effects over to them naturally without having to target them. Umbrella covers group members for X seconds, reducing AoE damage. Huge ability for AoE stuff. I expect defenders to ensure that there's always a little bit of momentum on the side for certain AoE effects. And then you got your non-momentum abilities, which can be used whenever. But they're not exactly things that are going to be like, oh shit, I just saved the group with this kind of combat effective. But not exactly, I mean, they're nothing like that. As you can see, Patronid, single target gains a defense increase based on defender's armor value. We will be planning making that to where the roll effective will give you the most as opposed to the defensive effective armor, simply due to the way that the shift in loss of effectiveness works. And then Aegis increases target's max health, which is something a healer would do. So these are both buffs outside, long duration buffs. These will be like an hour-long buff kind of thing. So if you want to read the background and lore, go for it. I'm not going to sit here and read.
We never talk about that.
Yeah, we honestly, we put all this background and lore. It's not a secondary aspect. It is something we absolutely focus on, but it is something that we understand that our role players will highly enjoy more than anybody else. There was an idea to create a second website specifically for all of that kind of stuff, and I argued against it, and I won. So role players thank me. You don't have to go to a second website, which I think would have been a horrible business decision. So, but he's adorable. No fucks given. Must
Talking about
about your cat, huh?
Yeah, I
right.
like how everyone knows it's the cat.
All right, so Lethality MMO asks, what do you guys think of limited raid rewards, like first 10 finishers select from 10 items? it's actually a good question and actually a pretty decent concept. I think I'm going to write that down. I think that's something we could consider for open world content because the idea was, and it always comes to this.
A fine line.
It is. How do you define who those 10 people are? You know, is it
yeah,
first come,
exactly.
first serve? What if the first people to show up just happen to tag the boss, but they fucking suck? Or maybe they don't contribute to the fight at all. Do they really
Or what if
deserve
they
it?
exploited it? Or like this, like there's so many other things that go into it, and then also you have to go, how many do you give out? What number do you decide is a fair number? Because it's limited content at that point.
So when it comes to the instance rating, which is the only place we got a heavy focus on instance, only because we don't want raid teams shutting other raid teams out. The rest of the open world, mind you, is still open, so you're still going to find other sub bosses throughout the open world constantly. So it's not like there's not going to be any competition for raids. But with the instance rating, the raid leads always have the ability to determine how they want to split the loot up, and we don't ever want to take away from the guild by limiting that. So that part won't happen. In the open world setting, it is a solid idea. It's something that would have to be discussed. Honestly, it would have to be intellectually discussed for a duration, a really long duration, by people on both sides, on other sides that haven't been seen. It's a conversation I'd absolutely love to have. So if you're interested in going a little bit more into detail and having a conversation with us, I'll give you the TeamSpeak. You can jump over and we can have a conversation about it. So
I was saying, like, the way he's looking, it looks like he meant, like, for instance content, and I can say this, we would almost have to do on-world content, because you have to, for something that has limited options, you have to put it somewhere where it can be contested, because then that would make it more fair, sadly, because instant-based, literally, racing is not even something we want as a group we don't want that mentality. Racing content is not fun.
We are... for limited rewards, what we're doing is we're creating a system where the raid can work together as a whole to achieve certain achievements within each fight. Mm-hmm. For instance, we've got a what we call Hungry Dragon raid that's up on the forums. You can read it. Right. It's a giant puzzle inside of the raid where you get these giant dragon heads that, just like Hungry Hippos, start going crazy. And you have to work the puzzle in order to get them to stop. And there's all kinds of stuff around that. But we've got what we're calling, what is the achievement? I can't remember the achievement name. But we've got a very specific achievement that the raid together has to work towards to unlock an extra piece of loot that will be given to the raid at the end of the fight, if they can make it through. And these are going to be difficult things. We're talking about, so that achievement is actually for the last 10% or 5% of the boss's health, which is not as quick as you might think. You don't deactivate any of the dragon heads, and you heal through all of the damage. That shit right there, in and of itself, is already going to be intense as hell. So we feel if they can work together as a raid to do that, they deserve a little bit of extra love. So
that's it. Yeah, rewarding overachievers is a good thing. But having limited rewards for someone doing something faster is just, I don't know, on my personal opinion, not a good place to be. But the limited rewards as a whole isn't bad. Limited rewards for different means, possibly.
We do plan on having certain events where you can race for certain things throughout the game's lifetime. And in that regard, that type of thing will absolutely come in. So
I see there's going to be a place for everything, but like making as a whole,
Lethality, send me a message, send Sacrament Game a message here on Twitch with an email I can send you some information to, and I'll send you an email. We can set up a time. We're constantly in TeamSpeak going over this game. When I say constantly, I mean between the hours of about midnight and noon are the only time we're not, and even sometimes then we are. So there's all kinds of crazy to it, but. Yeah, there's so many ideas out there sitting around that we can't even come up with on our own, and this is a huge thing for us, something that we're really trying to push towards, having people involved in our forums, in the creation of this game, in the testing of this. You see something and you're wandering around. ESO, for instance, right? I used to say, what would be really cool is if they released new trees that you had to have maxed out the previous tree for, like a summoning tree, for instance. I thought that would have been really badass if ESO would have done something like that. We don't want people just to talk about that kind of shit while they're playing the games. We want people to contribute that kind of stuff to us. We want to be able to take those ideas and build a better game, a more advanced game every single year. And it's something that we need to be very active and very forceful about letting you guys know that we don't want you to just send the shit in so you can feel better about yourself. We want you to send the shit in because we want these ideas for what they are. And I think if we can find a way to kind of, reward people for that kind of shit, it would bring a lot of solid ideas to us. So first come, first serve in an MMO overall is unproductive. Absolutely unproductive. It destroys a lot of things, frustrates a lot of people.
It makes them focus on the wrong thing.
Right, absolutely. Which is what the entire fucking market is built on right now. Which is why you'll buy a game that has 50 levels in the motherfucking thing, and you rush through all 50 damn levels.
You only care about the last one. You don't care about the ones in the middle.
And it ruins the game. What's the rest of the game? I don't remember anything from the early... Well, I remember the early levels of ESO because, I did... Anything on the current state of the project? Steel Deal...
Stuff and thing.
Do you ask that shit every damn time we do this You are the worst PR guy in the world.
Can I just ban him from Twitch?
Oh, state of the project. Let me give you the state of the motherfucking project, okay? We are finalizing the damn flyover video so that we can go. I will be getting a motherfucking Kickstarter date out to you guys over the next couple of days here. And Finfree, get out. It's Fifi, damn it.
It's fucking Foofy or something. I don't even know anymore.
And our developer, because we remedied an issue we had in-house with data sharing. Well, not data sharing between us, but data syncing, more or less.
Yeah, that's the better term. There you go.
Our developers are already working on the next assets and putting together the next parts of the map, and it's speeding up quite a bit. So that's the current state of the fucking project. And that's going to be the current fucking state of the motherfucking project for like 3 damn weeks until I say Kickstarter happens tomorrow, and then that'll be the new damn state of the motherfucking project.
Yeah.
Boy.
Telling you, we just get him banned.
Look, it's not even just him, okay? This is what the gaming market has become. Everybody wants fucking updates and expects changes every 3 damn days. Y'all know how hard it is to make a damn MMO. Are you out of your mind? Come on, people, get real with me.
I'm sorry, he broke.
I'm gonna go before I start cussing people out. Sodium levels. I wish. Kiki! Sodium levels.
Fucking Kiki.
All right. Anyways, I'm not going to show the video again because I have to figure out what the hell's wrong with my file. It's lost all of its audio. So, yeah, that's interesting. Probably something I did, something I'm overlooking. We'll learn. Anyways.
We're professional guys. We got this.
Hey, you can't say we haven't figured out and learned new shit. So,
it's always learning experience.
And I'm going to have to write down that. Where'd it go? It's there somewhere. There we go. So I'm going to need to write down this comment as well. So, because that's a decent idea to consider if we can remedy any inherent problems that come along with it. So, all right. You guys have a good one and stay frosty, you sexy motherfuckers. And Becca.
He forgot his shameless plug down below.
Oh,
go over to forums, check out our website. Our Twitter's up. The links are all down below. So if you have any information, go to Twitter, go to the forums, talk to us. One of us from anywhere will talk to you. It's always being picked up by developers or the founders even. Facebook's also down there. The volunteer forums are also down below. If you feel like you have a field in anything related, you want to give it a shot, just simple form down below. We look at them, check it out. Lay's shitty has a job, so I'm covering for him today. But hey, we got this.
I'm not the only one that's shitty because he forgot Sacrament Weekly. So we got
Nope.
a new video series coming out,
I
Sacrament
forgot.
Weekly,
God damn it.
from Fan Free and one of his friends. Can't wait for this FPS.
I'll ban him too. You ready? Like, we'll get there.
I have to find a piece of paper that I can actually crumble up because that has to go into my file. I'll kick your ass, Knight. Motherfucker. I'll stab you too. Don't you even test me. Test me. All right. Anyway, so
Thanks for coming out.
love you guys. Appreciate it. I don't know what the delay is, so I don't know when I can shut this off. And
I would just do it right about now.
right about now? Like
Yeah,
right about
now.
right now?
Now? Now.
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 Chicka chicka.